Hey guys, Captain Henson here. So, with The Rise of Skywalker coming out in just over a week, I decided to do what I always do when a new Star Wars film comes out, at least a saga film, and rewatch the previous films. Currently, I've just finished the prequel trilogy and will be moving on to the original trilogy, and from there, watch the Disney films. I just like having that separation for obvious reasons. And I've said before how much I love the prequels and think that most of the hate they received was unjustified and most of the criticisms are invalid. And rewatching the films, I still believe that to be the case. Most of the criticisms people have are very, very subjective. But they pass them off as objective. But this isn't about that. My love of the prequels still remain. I still think they're genuinely great films. But more importantly than that, the stories they tell are amazing. Quite frankly, the story of the prequels is, in my opinion, objectively good. We can argue the execution all day, but quite frankly, when it comes to a story that's a part of a larger piece, I personally care more about the story over the execution. If the story works, fits, then you know what? Who cares what the execution is? If they were a one-off piece, then yes, the execution would matter. But quite frankly, if the story itself works and fits within the larger piece, then who cares how it's executed? Now, I'm not saying I don't want any effort to be put in to these sorts of films. Like, preferably, yes, they would be executed well, and in my opinion, the prequels are executed well. But I just think we should focus more so on the story being told rather than how it's being executed. But, so, along with watching the prequels, I also decided to watch the Clone Wars micro-series, as that acts as the perfect bridge between 2 and 3. And all I can say is, watching the 3 films in the micro-series, it just made me happy. That's something I can't really say about the Disney films. Even Rogue One, which I do like, but... And this is especially the case for Episode 3. It just reminds me of why I love Star Wars to begin with. It reminds me of being a kid again. But more than that, these films, and even more so than the original trilogy, I'll admit, just make my imagination go wild. When I want to think of this big epic story that I would love to write someday, or just brilliant setup with brilliant payoff, I think of the prequels. Like I said, you gotta look at the story more so than how it's executed. Because unlike the sequel trilogy, the prequels had setup, proper setup, had a plan in place, and then payoff. I'd even go as far as to say that Episode 3 is not only my favorite Star Wars film, but it's my favorite film of all time, just because of how that film makes me feel. every time I watch it, I'm reminded why I'm a Star Wars fan. It was also the first Star Wars film I saw in theaters, FYI. But, I mean, this goes for a lot of people on it being like one of the best Star Wars films of all time. But one of the reasons it is because it had the proper setup. And now going into Rise of Skywalker, for this film to succeed, for me, it has to remind me why I'm a fan of Star Wars, why I love this franchise, why I stuck with it for this long, why I'm buying all the books, comics, games, cartoons, TV, movies. But I don't know if it can do that. It hasn't had the proper setup for this to be the proper payoff. Because screw the mystery box. That thing just doesn't work. I'm going to be seeing Rise of Skywalker with my friends. We all love Star Wars. I would argue some of us more than others. But seeing it with them is going to be the great experience I want it to be. But the film itself, like I said, I don't think it's going to live up to my expectations. They are next to nothing, of course, but I don't think this film is going to remind me of why I love this franchise to begin with. Overall, the new canon just, like I said all those months ago, the new canon just isn't my Star Wars. It has its moments, such as The Mandalorian and Twilight Company, but overall, the expanded universe, the complete saga, that's my Star Wars, and it always will be. No matter how good the new canon gets. And it's proven it can be really freaking good, it just won't be the EU. And as I go through the original trilogy and finally make it to episode 6, I get to that ending. And I'm sure it's going to fully supplant the fact that there just shouldn't have been any more saga films, in my opinion. And as much as I love George Lucas and will defend that man until I die, quite frankly, even with him, I don't think there should have been any more saga films. Spin-off films, sure. The Underworld series, go right ahead. But the fact of the matter is, Star Wars ended with 6. And the saga from there ended in 2005 with Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, was the perfect way to end the saga. Bringing the story of the prequels to a close, leading into the original trilogy. Again, reminding us why we love Star Wars. If Revenge of the Sith doesn't show you, or doesn't remind you why you love Star Wars, then I don't know how much of a Star Wars fan I can actually call you. Then again, you're probably an OT fanboy, so your passion for Star Wars is already questionable at best, but we'll see. Still got a little over a week before it comes out. I'm dreading rewatching 7 and 8 because I think both of those films are awful. But we'll see. We'll see. But, end this video on a more hopeful note. What else can 9 do to help remedy or rectify the mistakes of the previous two films and also the sequel era in general. Firstly, the film has to, and I do mean has to, connect to the rest of the saga. It can't just be a sequel to 7 and quote-unquote 8. It has to connect to the complete saga. It has to justify calling this the sequel trilogy. I don't know how they'll do it. Maybe find a way to implement the prophecy of the Chosen One, fingers crossed. Have Anakin Skywalker in there. He better be in there, or I'm going to consider that a problem. And it also has to fix the status quo issue brought up by TFA. Don't have the First Order ruling the galaxy. Don't have the entire, or Luke's entire Jedi Order destroyed. They can rectify all that. But considering in Resistance Reborn, they're hammering in the fact that Poe was wrong in Last Jedi, even though if you have a functioning brain, you know that he was in the right that whole movie. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't know if I have any faith in them. I don't have any faith in Abrams. You know what? Trying to stay positive. Have to stay positive. Look, like I said at the start, if this film can remind me why I love Star Wars, then I will forgive it. Kind of. At the very least, let me enjoy this experience. If it can remind me why I love Star Wars, I will forgive it for its probable, its many, many misgivings. Don't let my experience just be good just because I'm with my friends. Let it be good because this movie is genuinely good. Now, my friend Donnie, he's all hyped up for this film. I'm not, but you know what? I'm going in with an open mind. It has the possibility to be amazing, but my expectations are low. But I will say this. If we get a barefoot female character like we got with Ruby, then you know what? I would probably just have to let all the problems I have with the film blow away. Until next time, this is Captain Henson signing off.